Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned for the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet hope, Chicago. 2 is 4, 4 4 6. Come on, baby, now get your business fixed. Come on.
Hey there, I am really Marty Levinson. Don't let anybody fool you. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. Something like 240,000 shows watched on YouTube. Click on the pictures on the website. That'll follow you to the videos. You can go to YouTube from there and you can take your pick from all kinds of interesting things over the years. Everything from going down to the deep tunnel. One of our most watched shows, as a matter of fact, involves our guest on the show today, which was National Night Out, which is really a pretty cool show. And of course, community policing, we're very big on that. I want to give a lot of credit to Commander James Roussel in the 24th District, who's really put an emphasis on it. And they're talking about making 24 right now sort of a pilot project for new ideas for what might be going on. He was telling us at the last CAPS meeting that everybody, and it's actually community policing now, CAPS is federal money, that all the other districts had these real thin plans and he had this real thick one. So, you know, the powers that be liked that, so they might be adopting it. And by the way, also my next guest is responsible for our community policing sergeant, who actually wishes he could be here today, but he's got to work. So, and that's Sergeant Bob Kane. We're talking about the former community policing sergeant, as well as Lieutenant Captain Commander of the 24th District and Deputy Chief of Patrol in Area 3 and all kinds of good stuff for the city of Chicago, and now a professor of some sort of criminal justice type thing over at Luke College, and that's Bruce Rottner. How you doing?
Good, Avi. Thank you. I'm doing great.
First of all, it's good to hear, and it's always nice to have you. It seems I can't get anybody really working for the force anymore to talk to me.
Yeah, I think we discussed that last time, and you know, I was going to work on that, and apparently we haven't been successful yet. But
well, it's not that they won't talk to me, but they don't want to talk to me on camera.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Avi. That's the problem, you know. But we'll work on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is there any? I mean, I'm not trying to get you in any trouble, get anybody into trouble, and I know you don't want to, you know. Is there, like, are people afraid these days? I mean, it seems like so many city departments nobody wants to come on anymore.
Well, first of all, I can't get in any trouble because I'm not on the department anymore, so I can say what I want and do what I want. But
yeah.
There's always been and you were a reporter, you were a street reporter for a long time, so you understand this. You know, kind of a love-hate relationship between cops and the media. A lot of police officers, you know, see the media as not portraying them, meaning the police, in a positive light. Everything's bad, everything's negative. And you can get like that sometimes because, you know, in my almost 40-year career, I've seen police officers do some of the most remarkable things anyone's ever done, just unbelievable things. And, you know, you call the media, you tell them about it, and well, sometimes they're not really too interested in it. Because it doesn't sell advertising, it doesn't sell papers, and so on and so forth. So you become a little bit jaded when that happens, and you know, and that obviously is not all media. You know, we've made some good friends in the media, people that I'll give, you know, and like I said, I have nothing to gain or lose, but Jim Mullen, as you remember, police officer, October 16th, 1996, Jim was shot, became a quadriplegic. Jay Levine from, I believe, Channel 2.
Yeah.
really took the story to heart, and he and Jim became personal friends to the point where I think that Jay and his wife Marianne Childers still go out to dinner with Jim, his wife Athena. So Jay took that personally and never, it wasn't just a story to him. And those are the type of people that that are experienced, that see the good and bad and everything. I mean, we obviously understand that we'd rather have a free press here than in other countries where they don't. We just wish that sometimes there'd be a little more on our side. So.
And sometimes they deserve to be on your side. Listen, I've covered stories, and people don't understand what a policeman has to do. I mean, it's almost like the public expects a person in a real life situation, not a TV situation with the script, to be 100% perfect when the officer doesn't always know. His life could be in danger, or his or her life could be in danger at any second, in any situation.
Well, that's always the thing about police work. Decisions have to be made within seconds, and oftentimes they're life and death decisions. Everybody else has hours and days and weeks and months to look at that decision and criticize it or support it or whatever, when the officer himself or herself literally only has seconds to make the decision. We hope that the training that the officers receive, that the supervision that they receive, helps them to make the right decisions. Sometimes they don't, but again, they were there at the time. We weren't, so who are we to second guess what they did?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I gave up on sports talk radio, because I'm so tired of Monday morning quarterbacks and wheelchair generals.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. So am I.
And that's big time with the press on a constant basis. I mean, people who weren't even there, who have absolutely no clue. I mean, I'll tell you this much too. In my early days, I sort of understood a little bit about reporters. I'd be at an event, and that was before all this. At that time, you had to hit the payphone to call the story in. To get it in on time, and there were only so many payphones. So the guys from the daily papers were smarter than me and knew when to make a beeline. So I would listen to them calling their stories in, and I'd hear word for word what was going to be in the paper the next day. And all I could think of is, I don't know where the hell they were, but they weren't at the same event I was.
Well, we all learn from each other. I mean, I learned from some terrific policemen, back in the early 70s. And then as my career progressed, I would follow certain leaders and their styles, the good things and the bad things they did too, but I had a lot of great mentors, and as Avi, and Sonny knows, we've been very fortunate here in the 24th District. Present company may be excluded, but they have some really great commanders up here. Tom Byrne, Dave
One of my favorites. Those two, very different people, and two of the very best.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dave Boggs, Dave Subcheck for a while, and now Mike Wick, my dear friend, and now Jimmy Roussel, who's one of the finest men I've ever had the opportunity.
He's amazing.
To meet.
He really is.
He really is, and so we've been very fortunate in this district to have leaders and leadership like that, because that permeates to the troops, to the boots on the ground, so to speak, and they follow that commander's lead.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Roussel's got, for people who don't know Jimmy Roussel, I mean, this guy was a colonel in Fallujah during the, hostilities and all that. He also controlled drones. I had to talk with him about that, but he was in charge of drones and things. This is going back 20 years.
Be careful, he's going to have to come and kill you.
And he was also the head of the mobile strike force.
Yes, he was. Yeah, Jimmy was the first.
I mean, he's got such a tactical mind. And when I talk history with him sometimes too, he's so well read. He has such a good knowledge of history and what's happened before him.
And yet, with all those operational type of units he's been in, mobile strike force, when they were active, were not tasked with going to community meetings, and they weren't the friendly, touchy-feely police. They were the guys going out there and making a lot of arrests and going to hot spots and doing things like that. But even again, with all those operational type of commands that Jim has, he's an outstanding representative for the community. He's really in touch with the community. He knows what makes the community tick. He knows community policing. So it's unfortunate the city has a mandatory 63 retirement thing. Otherwise, because I think Jimmy's, he's like 61, 62, so,
Yeah, I heard a year and a half to go.
Yeah, but...
And I might have been a few months ago.
but again, a great leader. So we've been very fortunate up here in this district.
Yeah, that's one of the, I got to tell you, one of the things that really bothers me the most about that is so many really good people have to leave when they're at their peak.
Yeah. Well,
I can understand not being on the street at 63.
Sure.
But I mean, you were in that situation. One time you were what, the oldest guy on the force?
Well,
not
quite, but close to it. But the bottom line is, from an emotional standpoint and from a family standpoint too. I mean, eventually you have to say, enough is enough. I did this for 40 years. Now's my time to enjoy, being with my wife, to try something different. I'm teaching now, which I love doing. I have the freedom to live wherever I want to live, to get up and go and do. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things to be said for retirement. It's not something to, be afraid of or anything like that. But everybody's different, and you need to plan for it. You need to have something to do, every day. So, a lot of us still get together. I get together with my old team from Area 3. Dave Welbel, who worked up here.
Great guy.
Right,
He's been on the show.
Dave, in fact, we're having dinner tonight with he and his wife.
Give him my best regards.
I
haven't
will.
talked to him in a long time.
But, I talk to Dave every day, and then, Kathy Nickel, my secretary, Steve Cohn, Hank Jacob, who you know.
Sure.
We all get together every, 3, 4, 5 months, for pizza and beer and just hang out. So, and those are the things that you enjoy doing. So like I say, retirement isn't something. You're absolutely right. There's people 63 who can still contribute very heavily. In the federal government, they have no, retirement age or anything like that. But I think sometimes they also do us a favor by telling us to leave at this age, because you're still young enough to be able to do things and enjoy life, and so you have to kind of embrace that.
Yeah, and actually, you probably know better than I do. A lot of people who've left the forces have actually gone to similar type positions with other law enforcement agencies and excelled.
A lot of, I know a lot of other command members of the department, we apply to suburban police departments as chiefs' jobs, things like that. We belong to the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and they constantly have job offerings. I mean, if you want to go to Podunk, Iowa or somewhere in California, but, there's a lot of opportunities for retired police executives, if you will. You just have to go out and find them. But I'm very happy in doing what I'm doing right now.
Very cool. Glad to hear it. How are Steve and Hank doing?
Steve and Hank are doing terrific. I may have mentioned on the last show that we did, but once a week they have this group of retired guys that are all crazy and nuts, and they have a bucket day where they do like crazy stuff. I don't know if they've jumped out of airplanes yet or anything like that, but but they're still best of friends. They go to a certain place every Monday night. Sometimes I meet them up there, and so they're great people. I mean, people like that don't change. They were great policemen, and they're great people.
No, definitely, and they listen. You and they basically established community policing in the 24th district.
Well, it was a different time that we did that, and we're talking about almost 20 years ago now. It was 1993 when we started it. Things have changed significantly. People have asked me what I thought about, the superintendent McCarthy now kind of flattening the organization and letting each commander be responsible for community policing in his or her district. My read on that is very simple. The districts that had a strong foundation, like the 24th district, community policing will survive, and it will go on and on and on. Places where they didn't, it will kind of revert back to what it was back in the 80s and the 70s, where you had a community policing, or as we call them, the neighborhood relations sergeant,
right,
and a couple of patrol officers in the office to kind of handle the stuff that the beat officers can't handle. When people are hungry, they don't care who feeds them as long as they get fed. And so I think here in 24, I know some other districts Also have very strong community policing philosophies. Again, we never say a program because it's program something that can end. Community policing is also always a philosophy, and that's coming right from Chuck Ramsey, who's chief in Philadelphia right now.
Actually, I think he was smart asking for too much money for Chicago to hire him.
Well, there's a lot of reasons that didn't happen, but anyway.
He would have been great. Matter of fact, I think you're the person who introduced me to him in the first place.
Yeah, Charlie.
I think the world of the guy.
Charlie was a great leader, and he is a great leader. But be that as it may, so I think up here in the 24th district, community policing will continue, and you've got a lot of good opportunities up here, because everything now is not coming from downtown. You have to do it this way, and this way. Commander Roussel and his community policing staff can basically do what they want to do, and do what fits this community.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm not the biggest McCarthy or Emanuel fan, but I'm very much a fan of the idea of not having the cookie cutter approach. And what McCarthy is doing is letting each district use their community policing officers. And one of the things that Commander Roussel explained to us, they really should stop using the word caps, but they're not going to, because caps was federal money.
Right.
And a lot of the cuts and all the rest of it are as a result of federal money no longer being available.
Right.
Because there's certain areas the federal government actually cut budgets, which is surprising.
Sure. Well, I think, just looking back on it, in hindsight, historically, and I'm sure Sonny would agree with me, community policing accomplished the goal that it was initiated to accomplish. It got citizens to know their police officers much better, how we operate, why we do some of the things we do. And prior to community policing, we didn't have that. So if anything was accomplished, there was a greater understanding of what we go through to do our best to help citizens. And everything isn't black and white, and everything, that there's a lot of gray in there. There really is. And once we can teach citizens that, it just makes for a much better relationship between police and citizens. It really does. And it really cuts down on that us versus them mentality.
No, and that's one of the things that I saw myself in the beginning. When you can put a face in somebody and talk to them.
Absolutely.
And, that was one of the nice things, too, when we had more continuity.
Right.
Because for a while, as you know much better than I do, you used to flip shifts every month.
Right.
So when they kept the same officers on the same shifts and there was a little more manpower and you could see these people.
Correct.
It really built a personal relationship and broke down barriers. And not just for the people, but for the policemen also.
Well, this community, this area, traditionally the north side, has not had the level of violence that the west and the south side have had. We don't see the amount of weapons up here that we see on the west side and south side. We also tend to get a little more cooperation. As you know, and this will give the date when this is being recorded away, but we just buried that young girl, 15-year-old girl, who was shot at the park, and 2 arrests were just made. But one of the problems is nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to give anybody up. I don't believe that's cultural. I think people are just scared to do it. I really do. And I understand that, because we don't have the level of violence up on the north side, we get just outstanding cooperation with people, and that helps us solve cases up here. We do the initial investigation, then detectives have to go out and solve the cases. And, detectives, a lot of my close friends are detectives, but it's always somebody picking up a phone and saying, I want to meet you, detective, here's some information. Detectives develop informants, and they get information. That's how cases are solved, So, we're much better up here at doing that, only because the people here are more attuned to doing that. They're not quite as afraid as they are on the west and south side.
I was curious, rank-wise, and I always wanted to ask this, and I never remembered to ask it. Rank-wise, I know that a sergeant would command a detective, But is a detective considered a higher position or a better paid position than a regular patrol officer?
Detectives, become a detective, you take an exam. 20% of detectives are promoted meritoriously, so 2 out of every 10 are promoted. The others are based on an exam, which is a number, you know.
Yeah.
Detectives get what they call D3. It's D as in David, 3 pay. There's a number of officers who are basically patrol officers who get D3 pay. Evidence technicians, other specialists, but detectives get D3 pay. And I don't know the actual difference in pay. I remember it being $25,000, $3,000 difference between the detectives and patrol officer. But, you know, the thing about detectives is there's always something about a man or a woman in civilian dress in a suit. You know, you can have the superintendent of police at a scene in uniform, but they'll go to the detective in the suit because they always think he or she is in charge. Usually it's in charge because they're wearing a suit. It's an interesting phenomena, but that's what happens. And, you know, usually even patrol sergeants or lieutenants will defer to detectives because it becomes their scene, and they basically know what they're doing. A lot of sergeants and lieutenants never were detectives. I was never a detective, you know. So, you know, I really don't know what they're doing at the scene, but I know that that's what they put that yellow tape up there for, and then the actual shooting scene, the red tape, and we're not supposed to be in there so they can do their job, you know. So, yeah, so in that sense, they're patrol officers, appointed detectives, but it's not a career service rank like sergeant, lieutenants, and captain is what they call senior executive service. But those are not career service. A detective is not a career service rank. It's an appointed rank.
You know what? You brought up another interesting subject. You were talking about you don't know what they're doing when they're in the yellow, within the yellow tape. Well, one of the things I've learned from, you know, being involved with community policing all the years is so many people seem to think that what they see on Law and Order and NCIS or CSI or whatever is real. How real or not real?
You know, my wife watches those shows faithfully. I mean, and you know, I'm in bed listening to Gary Sinise or, you know, whatever on those things. I don't think they're really realistic. I mean, only because they have like 47 minutes to do something, and that's from the time.
Well, actually, they're down to 42. It used to be It actually used to be 53. But,
okay, you know, and so they have to have the crime, they have to have the investigation, they have to solve it all within a very short period of time. You know.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, it gives people a false sense of that we can solve these things immediately. You know, what those shows have done has really piqued a lot of interest in forensic investigation and stuff like that. You see a lot more kids going to school for that now, you know, which is a good thing. I mean, you know, I always said, and I've said this before on your show, the 2 most realistic police shows, and I'm really dating myself here, that I used to watch were Dragnet with Jack Webb.
Oh, that was a cool show.
Because that showed the boredom of police work, because Jack Webb was really kind of a boring guy.
Very.
You know? And Barney Miller, because that showed the humor. That showed the humor in police work. And as you know, having dealt with us for all your adult life, Avi, and you know, Sonny, coppers laugh at everything. Everything's funny. It's you know, because if you didn't, you'd probably, you know, blow your brains out or something like that. So you have to keep a sense of humor about all this stuff. And you know, police are, it's almost like being in the military. Everybody breaks everyone else's ears, and you know, you have to have a little bit of a tough skin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I know in 24, you know, and I can really only speak for 24, we just had a great group of people, and everyone tended to get along really well. You know,
True.
When you put all these people together, you know, a lot of dynamics are at play.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to go home, and everyone's going to grab each other and sing Kumbaya and stuff like that. You know, but I know compared to some other districts where I worked there or when I was an inspector and saw, 24 really people there just tend to get along very well.
There was a special camaraderie. As a matter of fact, I missed going to Pinewood after the monthly DAC meetings.
Right. I
That
remember
was a lot of
Pinewood.
fun.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
Not to mention $1.75 beers on tap.
Right. Ooh, the Pinewood, that brings back memories.
That was a great place. You know what? One thing I want to, let's solve the world's problems in the next 4.5 minutes.
Maybe we got it.
The murder rate in Chicago. Realistically, I mean, some of this stuff seems to be, I'm not going to say it's a situation that's out of control, but the thing is people can make statements, this, that, the other thing, but if somebody, how do you really stop anything like that? Or can you actually stop anything like that?
You know, I don't know. I certainly don't like when people say, well, you know, Chicago has the toughest gun laws in the country, and they've got the highest murder rate. I mean, you know, I like tough gun laws, you know. I am not, a big fan of the NRA or anything like that, you know, and that's just my personal belief. I think more guns out there, more guns are going to be stolen, more guns are going to be used in crimes, you know. We're the only state, as you probably know, in the Union that doesn't have conceal and carry, and now we have to come up with a conceal and carry law, you know. Other states are pointing to the fact that, well, they have conceal and carry and nothing happens. Well, if you live in Utah or Montana, you know, there's 400,000 people living there. You know, I mean, we're an urban area. I would be concerned about it because that means more people are carrying guns, okay? But I think it's going to happen. I think it's a proliferation of guns, and I think it's you know, as we started to talk about initially, media attention on that. You know, I mean, some of these guys feel they're becoming superstars by shooting other people. The gang culture is one of a very violent culture. So you know, it really needs to start with the guns. It really needs to start with, you know, finding the straw purchasers, the people that purchase guns and then sell them to gangs. That's where it really needs to start. I don't think that we're in this horrible, you know, where we're going to have 800 homicides this year or anything like that, you know. And I think some of the strategies that McCarthy and a few of the others have put together will reduce some of those things, but you know, it needs to start with guns, with gun control.
You know, am I mistaken, or at one time didn't we have close to 1,000 murders a year in Chicago?
Back in the 60s, yes, we did. Yeah, we had like 800 some odd.
Yeah, it wasn't unusual, and now the numbers are actually lower, but you know,
but you know, what happens is everyone talks, it's numbers, and you really forget that, you know, those are people we're talking about. And I don't care if it's a gangbanger, I mean, it's still someone's kid. And I once said that and I got really beat up by coppers over saying that. But the fact is, it is, you know. And, you know, the innocent victims, as that 15-year-old girl, and things like that, those are double tragedies. You know, they really are. And that's what we need to really address.
Yeah, not that I'm saying that any of this is, any kind of murder stuff is good, but one of the things people don't, when I at my brief stint at the Daily Defender, I covered a murder trial where a family followed these girls home after church. The mother was a cleaning lady in Evanston. This is on the south side. They basically tied up the boys, and they made them watch while they raped the girls. They tied everybody up. They burned the house down. 6 people died. 1 girl survived by hiding under a bed. It was front-page headline stuff for the Daily Defender.
Sure.
The white papers did not cover the story at all.
Really?
And you know, if a beautiful young girl was killed in the suburbs,
of course,
that was front-page news.
Of course.
But to the regular newspapers, especially in days when there were higher murder rates,
sure,
it was not news for the white newspapers.
Sure.
So some of the people don't realize that between all the TV you're watching, all the twits.
But one thing I will guarantee you,
yeah,
those detectives on the south side worked as hard to solve that crime as they would any crime up here.
And they did solve the crime,
right.
And that was a very interesting trial, and there's no question about it. But you know, I think people are just hearing more about it because I don't think this was ever publicized as much as it is now.
Sure.
And we've got less than a minute to go. So at this point, even though I got 14,000 more questions for you, and we'll have to have you back, and not to mention he's also a professor, although he's on leave this semester. Bruce Rottner, former deputy chief, Chicago Police Department, all-around good guy. One of the people, the person maybe more responsible than anybody else for making community policing work in the 24th district, which has also helped the rest of the city too. I want to thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Avi. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Be well. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Sonny.